My name is Jason Golden. I'm the Superintendent of Schools for Williamson County Schools, and we are here today for a law signing, bill signing, and a celebration of the work that our legislature has done. On behalf of our school board, many of whom are here today, I want to welcome you to Franklin High School, which actually is the home high school of our Governor Lee, and I know he'll speak to that as well. But we are happy that you're here at Franklin High School, and I know that we have so many leaders at the Department of Education, both houses of our legislature, the governor, of course, and many administrators throughout the state who have worked so hard on legislation related to school funding. And we thank them for their efforts. There's not much more important than what we're doing here in Tennessee in educating our students, the next generation. And it's a local effort and it's a state effort, and I want to thank our state leaders who are here today for the efforts you've put in. With that, I would like to introduce to you our governor, Bill Lee.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you all for joining us here. We normally would wait some period of time and have ceremonial signing, but we actually wanted to sign the actual piece of legislation today, and I wanted to do it in my public high school. And so I asked the leaders of General Assembly to join us today, and there are also school board members and educators, stakeholders in the room who care deeply about the future of our public school system as I do, and I'm grateful for your participating today. This is a historic day for public education, and not just an historic day for public education, but an historic day for children in Tennessee. In just a few minutes, I'll sign the Tennessee Investment in Student Achievement Act, which, because of the engagement of thousands of Tennesseans in the last several months, we introduced this last year and then invited engagement. And we had an outpouring of those who were interested in this legislation to make sure that we heard, and we wanted to make sure that we heard from Tennesseans that were stakeholders in this effort: parents, teachers, administrators, advocacy groups, anyone who was interested in this piece of legislation and in the future of our K-12 school systems, and we think this will take us to a new frontier. We've been operating under the same funding formula for almost 30 years, since 1992, and it's long overdue that we make this change, because certainly education has changed a lot in the last 30 years. What's unique about this piece of legislation and this funding formula is that it considers students above all. It is a student-based funding formula that considers the unique needs of every student and subsequently funds a district based on their needs as a result of their students. Districts are not a one-size-fits-all, and neither are students, and this funding formula takes that into account. Students have needs unique. Maybe students that might have a disability or that might live in an area of concentrated poverty, students that live in sparsely populated areas, rural areas, students who are interested in CTE. These are the type differences that create the uniqueness of every one of our children. And this funding formula takes into account those differences and funds districts accordingly. Every district in the state will receive more funding than they did in the previous year. And that is in part due to the fact that we're also making an historic $1 billion investment, additional dollars, into our K-12 public school system. So this is in fact a very important day. It's a very important move forward for our K-12 system. And it would never have happened, not only the engagement of thousands of Tennesseans and certainly administrators and educators and district leaders and teachers and students, by the way, as a part of that process, but This was a collaborative work of our office and the Tennessee General Assembly. This is an enormous lift to have this significant of a change and this important of an issue in our state. And so I've asked the leaders of the General Assembly to join me today as we sign this piece of legislation. Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally is here. Speaker Cameron Sexton is here. Leader Jack Johnson. Leader William Lamberth. Chairman Bo Watson. Chairman Mark White. And Chairman Kirk Haston. Each of these leaders had a very important part to play in navigating and shepherding this legislation through the legislative process, whether it's chairing the Finance Committee, Education Committees, or leading in the House and in the Senate. So this would never have happened without the engagement of these legislative leaders, and they represent a bipartisan group of legislators who voted to pass this piece of legislation forward. So I'm grateful for their attendance here today and for their engagement as well. I'm also grateful for Commissioner Schwinn. Commissioner Penny Schwinn talked with me early on about my desire to make this change, and she is passionate about children in our education system in our K-12 public schools across this state. And it was that passion and that commitment and that desire to work together to bring this forward in part that sparked this movement last year and then brought it to the finish line today. So Commissioner Schwinn, if you would come up please and say a few words.
I'm going to keep it brief because I think y'all have heard enough from me lately. So I just want to start. We had the great pleasure of starting this work today. So no rest on this as a leadership team. And we started that by seeing a group of elementary school students from Sumner County visiting the Capitol. And I popped out of our session on TISA to sit down and talk to a group of second graders. And those second graders were learning all about government and civics. They were talking about their favorite books, their summer plans. Many of them are going to summer school this year. And that is what this is about. It's about ensuring that every single child in the state of Tennessee has access to an excellent education. And we are funding that education so they can all reach their full potential. There's been a lot of work over the last year and a half, from special session a year and a half ago to this moment, where we said, here's what we want to do. We want to make sure every kid's reading on grade level. We want to make sure that every single child is in a middle and a high school program that sets them up for success. And we have got to make sure that we have a funding formula that supports all of those goals. This does that. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we took the feedback from a group of stakeholders across the state of Tennessee, East, Middle, and West. We talked at length with General Assembly members and the leaders and gentlemen who are on this stage, really pushed this bill to a place where it is better and stronger on behalf of kids. Asked really tough questions, pushed to ensure that all of their constituents would be represented, but most importantly, the students of this state would be better off than they would have been before. So I'm very grateful for those long days and nights, and also for the feedback, because I do believe that when we work with our superintendents, our excellent superintendents, our exceptional teachers, and our high potential, amazing kids in this state, we can do so knowing that we are funding them, every single one of them, to be successful and to thrive after they graduate. And that's what this is about. So I go back to that second grade group that I saw this morning, sitting down on the ground, my favorite place to be, talking about what they want to be, who they want to be, and what they're learning. And I feel so much better today than I did last week, the week before, or 2 years before that, because I know not only are we setting the expectations, but we are funding the expectations. And the work really does start now. So thank you for your support, and thank you for getting this passed, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And one of the folks that was key to this is Leader Jack Johnson. This is his district, but more importantly, he carries and carried the legislation for us, for my office, through the process along with these other leaders. So Senator Johnson, if you would come up and just say a word. There you are.
Thank you, Governor. You know, ordinarily in this kind of situation, you say, Governor, it's great to have you in Williamson County, but, well, you live here, and you went to high school here, so welcome home. It's great to have you. This is a very special day. It's a day that a lot of people have worked very hard to get to, and it was my honor to play a small part in getting this legislation across the finish line. Some of you may not know, by education, I'm a high school government teacher. I didn't teach very long because it didn't take me long to figure out what a difficult job it is. So I'm very grateful for our teachers and our educators. But I will tell you that this bill and how this bill came to fruition would be an excellent lesson in civics, in government, and how state government works. Because it started from a very grassroots standpoint by engaging stakeholders, county commissioners, school board members, teachers, as the governor said, students, parents, all across the state. We knew we had a problem. We knew we had a formula that did not work, and we've known that for a number of years. But it's one of those third rails of politics that nobody was really willing to tackle it and take it on. We all knew it needed to be done. But thanks to this governor and this commissioner of education, they said, it's time. It's time we do it. No matter how difficult it's going to be, we need to tackle this problem. And that's what they did. And they convened people from all across the state to get their feedback, their input. They aggregated that into a stakeholder group that formulated and took all of that public input and put it together into a piece of legislation that my colleagues and I were able to bring and present to our members in the House and the Senate. And then we went to work on it. And there were a lot of conversations, lots of hearings, lots of discussions. But we ended up with a really, really good piece of legislation that we can all be proud of. It's going to be good for Williamson County, but more importantly, it's going to be good for every teacher and every student across the state, because it is truly a student-centered funding formula, and that's what we should be doing, not funding bureaucracies or programs. We need to fund students, and that's what this formula will do. So it's not just an enormous amount of money. I believe the largest one-time increase in K-12 spending by the state of Tennessee, even adjusted for inflation. That's significant in its own right, but we made the formula better. So those billions of dollars that we already spend and that we're going to add to it can truly go to help kids all across Tennessee. So Governor, thank you for your leadership. Thank you to all my colleagues from the General Assembly and for helping us get this done. And I look forward to seeing you sign this and see it become law.
Thank you. Thanks, sir. Well, we'll sign it. I will say I was just standing here thinking about the importance of public education. This being my school and my attendance, and yesterday I actually went to a school carnival at the Fairview Elementary School, which was where I went through first through 7th grade, and then came into Franklin Special School District School, and then to Franklin High School. In this very auditorium. This is a beautiful new school, or certainly it's not brand new, but it's certainly a beautiful facility. But this auditorium is the same one that was here when I was in school. And reflecting on standing on this stage some 45 years ago and speaking to a Beta Club group, I had that memory just a minute or two ago. And standing here today, investing in public education, because it is incredibly important to me and meaningful and momentous for me. When I consider what the public education system did for me, when I consider the passion of the teachers that I had from 1st through 12th grade. We didn't have kindergarten then, but when in the school that I went to. But when I can count and name the teachers that were passionately interested in me and that were hopeful and poured their lives into my individual success. And I know that they were doing that for every kid in their classroom. And the challenge of that, the ability for us to provide additional funding so they'll have the resources that they need, the technology that they need. It's only one step, but I think it's an incredibly important step. And reminding all of us that the vast number of our children are educated in Tennessee in our public school systems, we need to continue to look at ways to improve and invest and make sure that every kid in Tennessee has the greatest opportunity possible to find what their definition of success is in life. So thank you for joining me and giving me the opportunity. Those of you that are a part of Franklin High School, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this in this auditorium that is historic to me, and it's a historic day for our state. So if you all would come behind, join, we'll sign it. It's the real thing. That's why we're doing it.